The claim is not waiting for a vocabulary lesson. A property manager reports an injury connected to a contractor's work, and both insurance teams ask a practical question: which policy is supposed to respond first? The contract says the contractor's insurance must be primary and non-contributory. The certificate repeats the phrase, but the issued policy file contains a different question: what endorsement for which party, and under what facts makes that wording operative? This is a dramatized composite. The companies, people, project, claim, and contract are fictional. The question is real: what does primary and non-contributory actually change when another insurer is already involved? This is a dramatized composite based on recurring commercial insurance contract and wording questions. We will follow the contract request, the certificate shortcut, the endorsement review, and the moment two insurers each expected the other to respond first. The episode is educational only. Policy wording, endorsements, contracts, jurisdiction, and facts control. The customer contract asks the contractor to maintain liability insurance, name the customer where required, and make that insurance primary and non-contributory. In plain English, the customer is trying to avoid having its own insurance treated as the first or shared source for a loss arising from the contractor's work. But a contract requirement is not itself an insurance endorsement. It tells the parties what they expect to arrange. The policy still needs to contain wording that can respond to the relationship and the facts. The contractor sends a certificate. The customer sees additional insured language and the phrase primary and non-contributory in the description. The vendor is approved. The certificate is useful evidence that insurance information was communicated, but it is not the operative policy or endorsement. The project team has compressed a layered requirement into a visual checkmark. That is the first warning sign. A phrase can be present on a certificate while the underlying policy question remains unresolved. Primary wording generally addresses priority between insurance policies. It does not mean the policy is unlimited, that every allegation is covered, or that the customer automatically wins a coverage dispute. Limits, exclusions, conditions, endorsements, the identity of the insured, and the connection to the work still matter. Non-contributory wording generally addresses whether the vendor's insurer seeks contribution from other available insurance, but the exact effect depends on the wording and circumstances. A common mistake is treating these statements as identical. The contract requires primary and non-contributory insurance. The certificate says primary and non-contributory, therefore the vendor policy must respond first for every dispute. Those are three separate steps. The contract states an obligation. The certificate communicates information. The policy and endorsement define the insurance relationship. The phrase is a question to verify, not a conclusion to assume. The work proceeds. The contractor's employee is injured near the completed installation, and the property manager is named in the demand. The property manager reports the matter to its own insurer. The contractor reports it to its insurer. Now the other insurance provisions, additional insured wording, primary endorsement, allegations, operations, and contractual relationship all become relevant. A priority phrase can matter greatly, but it operates inside the policy architecture rather than outside it. Broker and insurers review three questions. First, is the exact property management entity an additional insured for this occurrence? Second, does the primary and non-contributory endorsement apply to this contract and operation? Third, do the allegations arise from the contractor's work in the way the endorsement requires? The answer is not supplied by the certificate alone. It depends on the issued wording and the facts of the claim. This composite does not say that every primary and non-contributory request is defective. It does not say that a certificate is useless, or that one policy always pays before another. It shows why a contract phrase should be matched to the actual endorsement and the exact parties and operations. The result can depend on policy language, jurisdiction, underwriting, other insurance, and claim facts. The file is reconciled by comparing the contract requirement, the certificate, the endorsement, the additional insured wording, and the other insurance provisions. The purpose is not to make the phrase sound more certain than it is. The purpose is to identify which document answers which question, then record any gap before the next project or claim. Before approving the vendor, Ask which endorsement is intended to satisfy the requirement, whether the correct legal entity is protected, whether the wording applies to this operation and contract, whether the primary and non-contributory language is actually issued, and whether any conditions or limitations need to be explained in writing. Keep the contract, certificate, endorsement, and broker response together. The contract can require priority. The certificate can repeat the request. The endorsement and policy wording determine what was actually arranged. When another insurer is already involved, do not ask only whether the phrase appears. Ask which document makes it operative, for whom, for what work, and subject to which conditions. This has been an insurance case file. Educational information only, not insurance or legal advice.